Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him with the flocks and the herds of camels into two companies, thinking, if Esau comes to destroy one company, then the other one can escape and be free. So if Esau can only kill half of my people, the rest of my people will be okay. So jump down to 13. So he spent that night there, and from what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. These he delivered into the hand of his servants, every drove by itself. And he said to the servants, pass on ahead of me, and put a space between the droves and between the drove. And he instructed the foremost, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong, where are you going, and whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau, and moreover, he is behind us. So he sent these animals, sent a flock of goats first, then the male goats. Then he sent then behind them were the sheep. A few minutes later came the camels. A few minutes later came the donkeys. Maybe this will appease my brother. Maybe this will cause my brother not to kill me, which is the ultimate hope and dream, that our siblings do not kill us. Chapter 33. Now Jacob looked up, and he saw Esau coming, and the 400 men with him. So he divided his children among Leah and Rachel and their two maids, and he puts the maids and their children in front of them, still thinking, oh my gosh, maybe we'll put the children in front of me. You'll see I have kids, they'll be okay. He won't kill the kids. And Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went out ahead of them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and chopped off his head. No, wait, that's not what it says. I see it if you're paying attention. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. When Esau looked up and saw the women and children, he says, who are these with you? Jacob says, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. Then the maids drew near, and their children, and they bowed. Leah likewise with her children, and then drew near and bowed down. And finally Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. And Esau said, what do you mean by all this company that I met? Jacob answered, to find favor with my Lord. But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. No, please, I find favor with you. Then accept my present from my hand, for truly to see your face is like seeing the face of God, since you have received me with such favor. Please accept my gifts that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have everything I want. So he urged him, and he took it. And then Esau said, let us journey on our way, and I will go alongside you. We don't know the story of Esau. You can read the story of Jacob. You can see all the stuff that Jacob goes through. And go for it. Read it. Because it's an interesting story. It's full of trickery, deceit, and garnished wages. So it's kind of like the real world when you get out there, okay? But we don't know what happened to Esau, but something happened in Esau's life. He could have lived in bitterness and despair and anger and let that knowledge filter his body and destroy him from the inside out. Have you ever seen somebody who lives in unforgiveness and holds on to grudges? Are they happy people? No. My brother-in-law has changed a little bit, but when I first met him, I think he was still angry at the doctor who spanked him when he was first born. anybody could get away with anything. He turned away from a church just because the pastor said something he didn't agree with once. And he'd hear about all these people that he's mad at for one reason or another. He was a miserable person to talk to, because all you hear about are what the people did wrong in their lives. But somehow along the way, and that's what Esau could have been, but somewhere along the way, Esau learned this art of forgiveness. And that forgiveness freed him. And there are 3 points I want to talk about forgiveness and looking at Esau. The first one is that forgiveness frees us from the chains of anger and bitterness. People who learn how to forgive people, people who learn how to live in forgiveness, are some of the nicest and happiest people to be around. Because somebody who doesn't live in forgiveness, we know what they're like. You don't want to talk to them. They're mad at somebody for some reason. But if we learn how to just forgive and move on in life, then it frees us. We're not holding on to that anger. Because that anger is like a cancerous cell that just grows and grows and grows until it consumes you. And it's all a matter of you don't want to talk to those people anymore. You don't want to talk to anybody. Case in point, my dad and my Aunt Kathy, they haven't talked to each other in 30 years. 30 years. One comes into the room, the other one leaves. For 30 years it's been like this. My entire life that I've known them, it's been like this. And one day, I'm sitting there over here in a conversation, finally have the guts to ask my dad, why is this like this? And it turns out it was because of a money situation that happened over 30 years ago. That Kathy didn't pay back my dad something, and yada, 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 blah, 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 yaggity, smaggity, I hate you, blah, blah, get out of my face. 30 years ago. And I think that one event has affected not only their relationship with each other, but their relationship with other people. Because they've been holding on to bitterness and hate and anger for 30 years. Forgiveness frees us of those chains. Forgiveness also, on that note, using that example, forgiveness opens up avenues for relationships. Picture it today. People are upset. In 2001, I've heard more information and learned more about Muslims and Islam in a week than I knew in 20 years. I'm trying to think how old I was back then. I learned more about how they hate us and how they want to be, and we need to wipe them out, and yada, yada, yada. And people started looking at, and people who lived in that hate and that desire, and we'll start looking at people who even look like they're from Arabia, or look like they're Muslim, or even talk about Muslim, are automatically judged, hated, and tried. Is that right? When they're not even connected to those things. You know, they may not even be from that group. That, from what I understand, the people who planned 9/11 were a rogue sect, a different species, a different group, denomination, whatever. I don't even understand it, but I know that not every Muslim is like that. I know not everybody who follows Islam hates me. I know not everyone who looks like they're from Arabia or from the Middle East is going to kill me. I know that's not going to happen. But there are people who operate in that hate and that I will never forget concept. And anybody that looks similar to somebody from that world is judged, hated, and ignored. And if we operate in, if we operate in forgiveness, if we operate into an openness, we are free to meet those people and get to know them and have a relationship with them. And if, oh my God, if possible, God forbid this happens, but they actually get to know you, they get to know your Jesus, and they get to fall in love with your Jesus, and they get to fall in love with him and find out what he did for them. And next thing you know, good Lord, maybe something could happen and they can get saved, and they can come into the fellowship, and they could be more than a friend, and more than just somebody you know, but they could be your brother. They could be your sister. God forbid that happens, right? Instead, let's just hate them all and kill them, right? Don't take that excerpt out of everything I said, all right? We want to love them, all right? We want to show them who our Jesus is, that he died on the cross for us and for them. He died on the cross for the world. It's up for us to show it. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You're the only Jesus they're going to see. You're the only Bible they're going to read. It's up to us to show them. And that's the main point that I want to get across for us. The last and final point I want to tell you about forgiveness is forgiveness doesn't depend on the other person asking for it. Esau forgave Jacob before he even saw him. Before the first herd of sheep came to his camp, Esau had already forgiven him. Before Jacob even thought to ask for it, Esau had gotten to a point in his life where he already forgave him. The people who orchestrated 9/11 aren't going to ask us, forgive me. The person who knocks a tray over in the cafeteria isn't going to say, I'm sorry, forgive me, especially if they did it on purpose. My Aunt Kathy is never going to talk to my dad and say, I'm sorry, forgive me. The people who bullied me in high school and middle school aren't going to say, here, I'm sorry, forgive me. They're not going to say it. And if they don't ask for it, do I still have to forgive them? Yes.
And you know what's amazing, Hale? When you turn around to that person that knocked that tray off your table and say, I forgive you, the look on their face.
They don't, it doesn't have to depend on them asking for it. Heck, they don't even have to know it. They don't have to know that you forgave them. They just have to be forgiven. And it's up to you. You have a choice. The same choice. You can either hold on to the hate, the anger, the grudge, the unjust, or you can let it go. Say, I forgive you. Does that remove them of consequences? No. I don't know where I am ready for this. If I'm ready to forgive some of the people who orchestrated 9/11, fortunately I don't have to, because most of them have already been taken care of by the United States government. And that's what I was waiting for my government to hear. I was waiting a week after 9/11 to hear George W. Bush say, don't worry about it, it's been taken care of. I wanted it myself. But I'm not going to hold that anger for everybody. I'm not going to hold on to that anger for everyone that looks Muslim or talks Muslim or is Muslim, because they didn't do anything. I will operate in the forgiveness of Jesus Christ and say, God bless you. God loves you. What can we do to change this?